As promised, I'll be doing a video about healing today from a more demonolatry perspective. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word demonolatry and association with demons and things, they think it's all bad and dark and gloomy and whatnot. It's not. So let's get into that. Alright, so when it comes to healing from a demonolatry perspective, now this isn't vastly different from any other tradition. The main inclusion would be that you are working with demons. And there are, there's various demons that fall into the area of healing. Vereen and Veria, for instance, are demons of healing and herbal magic, and there's a lot of demons within the Goetia which are associated with herbal magic and healing in general. So you can work with those spirits directly if you like to, for various different types of healing, but when it comes to healing, we have various different forms. So we can heal physically, we can heal emotionally, we can heal mentally, we can heal spiritually. And for instance, if you are needing some emotional balancing or some emotional healing, then Leviathan is an amazing demon to actually work with. And again, people, who haven't actually delved into demonolatry and the demons themselves, they might do a quick search on Google for Leviathan, and it's this monster from the sea type of thing. But Leviathan's very calming, soothing. His energy is just, from the demonolatry perspective, Leviathan is the demonic force of the element of water, and water is about emotions. So when it comes to the emotions and understanding the emotions that we're going through, and also helping us to balance those emotions, the element of water is a fantastic element to work with, and in that regard, Leviathan, fantastic to work with. But again, there's more to healing than just that. We can even look into necromancy for healing purposes. When a loved one dies, we often need healing. We go through a period of mourning and grief and loss, and that requires healing. So even if you go into necromancy and you work with a necromancer, that necromancer will help you to, overcome that loss and that grief, help you understand death itself. So working with the death demons also in that regard is amazing. Working with Euronymous is the demon of death, and again, his energy is very soothing and very comforting. It's kind of like putting on a warm blanket, and he can help you to actually understand the process of death and understand your grief. And there are a lot of death demons that fall into this category. So, we tend to view these things, if we haven't looked into it properly, we tend to view these things as all bad and horrible, but even death is a process of life. Everything is going to die. So it's something that is natural. It's something that, needs to be discussed and regarded and not feared, because it's just a part of the process. So what I'm trying to say is, you can't view things as all doom and gloom. You can't view things as negative and positive and bad and good and nice and wormy. I don't know how to put it really, but death is something that is there. It's something that we can't get away from. You have a plant in your house, at some point it's going to die. A tree at some point is going to die. It may outlive you, but at some point it's going to die. Every person you know is eventually going to die. You are going to die. It's not something that can be avoided. So, learning a bit more about death is not a bad thing. And learning how to deal with it, especially when a loved one passes, and how to actually get over that grief and loss is part of the healing process. But what I mostly want to actually get into today is S. Connolly's book, The Demonolatry's Guide to Demonic Magic. There's a whole section in here which takes you through certain rites and certain workings. And there's a lot in here that actually goes into various different healing formats. There's emotional balancing, there's healing the body, healing the emotions. I'll have a look at those two just now. But the one area that I think any occultist, witch, magician, whether you define yourself as a demonolator or not, if you define yourself as a witch, or you define yourself as a chaos mage, or you define yourself, whatever it is, if you are working with magic, then elemental balancing is very important. And I find that working with demonolatry, elemental balancing is something that is paramount to the practice. When we cast a circle, it's mostly to balance the elements within that space, so that when we're working our magic, we are balanced elementally. And as we go through life, we find that quite often a particular element is out of balance. So, for instance, if if air within you is out of balance, you might be too much in your head. You got these thoughts racing more than usual. We all have thoughts racing through our heads. We all have the monkey mind, which is why we use meditation to actually quiet the mind. But sometimes it's just a bit more than usual. In fact, in the book, there's actually some good descriptions of or possibilities of imbalances. So, for instance, air imbalance. An air imbalance might have symptoms of trouble catching one's breath, thinking too much instead of doing, or not being able to think clearly. Fire imbalance. Fire imbalance may be identified by lack of motivation, exhaustion, being quick to anger, irritable, or extremely thirsty. Water imbalances can be identified by extreme thirst, severe emotional mood swings, and the inability to go beyond feelings to find reason. And earth imbalance can be categorized as including the feeling of lethargy, tiredness, and overly pessimistic. So, if you are feeling any of those things, you may have an imbalance of that particular element. It doesn't mean that, if you are constantly in your head, that you have an imbalance. It may just be that you are a more airy person. But it can help to actually balance that out from time to time. So, when we cast a circle, we call the specific demons to the quarters, and it's specifically to balance the element within that quarter, within that space, so that the space we're working in is well balanced between all of the elements. Now, if you do find that you need to balance the elements within yourself, there's a great ritual in this book. And it's also in the complete book of Demonolatry, if you happen to have a copy of that. But basically, the ritual goes whereby you do cast your your elemental circle, and then you visualize, a lot of visualization in this practice. So what you do is you visualize all of your elements being put into a box. So all of the elements go into a box. So you can imagine as you're putting in your earth element, imagine it as leaves or dirt, sand, things like that. You put it into the box. Your water element, you take some water and you put it into the box. Fire could be a flame. You put that into the box. So you put all of yourself into this box, all of the elements that you are into the box, and this process itself usually makes you feel quite exhausted because you're basically getting rid of yourself. So you put it all into a box, and then what you do is you replenish the box. And by this, what I mean is you put fresh elements into the box. So you put each element one at a time into the box, fresh, new, and nicely formed. And then what you do is you take the box and you pull it into yourself. And this then actually, if you do that part right, then you feel energized and you feel balanced again. It's a nice little ritual to do an actual elemental balancing. But what I wanted to actually get into were those two that I spoke about earlier. So I just want to find those quickly. 3, 7, 2, 1. So the first one is healing of the body. Now, you'll find with S. Connolly's works, there's a lot of warnings. So, for instance, healing the body. She says, no ritual should be used as a substitute for professional medical care. Rituals and magic are a complementary therapy and should be used in conjunction with regular medical care and science to get the best results. If you have a diagnosed illness, seek professional medical help and be careful to only use balanced magic. Certain ritual constructs can actually aggravate certain physical conditions, including but not limited to chronic fatigue and arthritis. And when she goes into the healing the emotional rite, same thing really, just seek professional medical care, including a psychologist. And also goes on to say, if you have a diagnosed psychological condition, including depression, seek professional help and be careful of using magic, as magic can actually aggravate certain psychological conditions, including depression and manic or bipolar disorders. So, using magic is about being responsible. So please just bear that in mind. These are alternative practices. They're any kind of alternative or complementary practice or medicine should be followed up with a GP. Balance things out. Make sure everything is balanced in your life. So be responsible. All right, so the ritual for healing the body. This ritual is best done sky-clad, nude, or in robes with nothing underneath. Prepare yourself using a self-purification ritual. On a full moon in the morning, after invoking Veria, Verine, and or Bua, within an elementally balanced ritual construct is best. In a clean cauldron over a flame, do this outdoors if you can, boil 1 teaspoon of valerian root, 1/4 cup of hibiscus flowers, and an 1/8 cup of mint in 3 cups of clean water. Please have the proper implements ready, including heat-safe dishes, pot holders, etc. Strain the mixture through cheesecloth into a cup. Hold the cup above you and say or vibrate, Adra enat missa verriere et verine et bua. Then drink the contents of the cup carefully. Refill the cup and repeat until all of the mixture has been drunk. In an oleum or ink of dragon's blood, draw the sigil of Verine on each thigh, on the stomach, and the breast. So, very simple ritual. I think you can probably see parallels between wart cunning within, demonolatry and within traditional witchcraft. The big difference is, as I say, you are invoking demons. The next one is the healing of the emotions. Let me just read this one for you. Emotional healing requires an outburst, so it's suggested you do this ritual when you are home alone. Invoke at a single point of entry. That is, you invoke one demon into the space, and that's that. I prefer to invoke Leviathan for this. Others prefer Varine or Varia, or even Bua or Aureus. It's important that for any emotional healing you identify the emotions you're feeling. Anger and sadness are usually the offenders, but guilt and fear can sometimes be components too. This is, more or less, a ceremony of letting go and moving on. Once in your ritual space, write down how you really feel on a piece of parchment. If you have a lot of feelings, bring a lot of parchment and a good ballpoint pen. Take your time, get it out. Cry, scream, and yell to get the emotions out. Imbue the paper with these painful feelings. Then sit in the center of your ritual space and take the demonic force invoked into you. Take deep, cleansing breaths. Imagine yourself happy, unafraid, healthy, strong, and decisive. Now burn all the sheets of parchment, harboring your painful emotions. Close the ritual space by thanking the demonic force invoked. Repeat this ritual as necessary. And she then goes on to say, if you find yourself needing this ritual often, consider seeking professional psychiatric help, or consider looking at the areas of your life that are causing the calamity and working on those areas. So as I say, it's healing can be done in various formats. And it can be done for various things. Don't just forget that you not only have a physical body and you have emotions and you have a mind which you need to, work on and balance and bring healing to. There's other areas of your life where healing is necessary. I spoke about necromancy and actually healing grief and loss when a past one or a loved one has passed. But even within necromancy, we find that there are rites and rituals to help somebody who has had a lover or a relationship or a friendship that has ended. Nobody died, but there is a death that happened. There's a death of the relationship itself, and even in that, we need healing. So, don't disregard things because they may seem a bit oogie boogie. And, various people have said, "Oh, necromancy is all about raising the dead and bringing the dead back and this and that." And, it's not, raising the dead and reanimating the dead. That doesn't really happen. But necromancers will work with the dead. They will work with the ancestors. So there's a lot to necromancy, well, a lot more to necromancy than I think a lot of people think or realize. In fact, if you watch the Black Hat Chat live shows, not this Friday, but the next Friday, we're going to be talking about necromancy or necromancy. So, if you want to learn a bit more about that, tune in this week as well, but tune in next week for that Black Hat Chat live show, and we'll see how much we can actually discuss about necromancy. I don't know. I say necromancy. A lot of people say necromancy. So, I guess it's personal choice. Anyway, so if you are interested in demonolatry and if you are interested in healing, as I am, then you might want to have a look into this book, The Demonologist's Guide to Demonic Magic, and there's a lot more in here than just healing rites. There's lots. Let me give you a quick idea. There's all chapters on execration magics, psychic vampirism, sex and magic, sigils, symbols and magic, talismans, amulets, blood and magic, alchemy, elemental magic, how to properly invoke, Astral and magic, but then there's the magical operations. There's addiction breaker, to acquire a job, cause change, close astral portals, communicate with spirits of the dead, discover hidden things, divination, draw new friends, dream walking, emotional balance, expose false friends. It goes on and on. Financial help, ignite the fire within, influence people or situations, legal success. So it covers basically everything, which is what I'm trying to say. But there are some nice healing rites in here as well. And if you do want to have a look at necromancy, I'm going to start saying it that way on this channel. Otherwise people are going to be saying, what's this necromancy? S. Connolly actually has 2 fantastic books. Honouring the Dead, start with that one. And then if you really want to delve into it, then you can have a look at The Keys of Okot. Brilliant books, fantastic. And S. Connolly's writing is fantastic. She gets straight to the point. There's no fluffy language or poetry or, all the stuff that we find in a lot of other books. It's straight to the point. Really is straight to the point. So anyway, that's for me for today. So have a great week, and I hope to see you on the live chat on Friday. This week we're talking about shape-shifting, which should be quite fun. All right, have a brilliant week. Cheers.